Okay, Denise had suggested that I might read some of my stories here while we're all in quarantine. So I'm going to do that. This is a story that I've read often, actually, because it works pretty well as a story to read because it's short and you get through it quickly. Um, it's 1,400 words. I think it may be the shortest story I've ever sold. This one was published in a science fiction anthology called I, Alien, which was edited by Mike Resnick. Came out from DAW Books in April of 2005. I'll get it. Look, there it is. I, Alien. And also appeared in Science Fiction Best of the Year, edited by Rich Horton in 2006. So, this is a story called You by Anonymous. You wonder about the title, but you start to read. You also grimace a bit at the use of second person, thinking it both a bit awkward and pretentious. And you wonder if the author is trying to make you think you are the protagonist of the story, that this paragraph is referring to you personally. It is. Now, you read those words and you grimace again and give a little half exasperated huff of air. Almost you start to argue back to the page, denying that possibility. Then you stop. And there's just the faintest, the tiniest bit of wonder, of something akin to hope. After all, you think, that would be interesting. That would be unusual. You can almost hear Rod Serling intoning the introduction for the Twilight Zone. You've always wanted something like that to happen to you, haven't you? Well, you're right. These words are directed to you, truly. Now, you're not quite certain how that could be. After all, there are thousands of copies of this book out there circulating, and how could the story know that it's really you and not that overweight, balding programmer with a graying beard in the paper stuffed apartment in Queens, who's also currently reading this at the moment? But it is you, not him. Why would it be him? He's a loser. He hasn't had more than one date for 3 years, and even those single dates have been rare. He goes out to bars once a month or so, hoping to get lucky, but his social skills, never very good, have atrophied even further since his job doesn't require him to actually hold a conversation with anyone. And so he usually ends up wandering from circle to circle, being ignored until closing time, and then going back to his room and popping one of his pornographic DVDs into the player. You're not him. In fact, he stopped reading at the porn reference, tossing the book across the room in angry and futile denial. Now, you think that's a rather harsh and brutal characterization, though you've known a few people who could fit that description, and you're somewhat annoyed at it, but though the description is rather on the cold side, it is also accurate. And besides, you didn't write it, so you don't need to feel responsible. Even Bob the programmer, "Hi Bob, don't you love it when you see your name in print?" And those self-flagellating moments when he's alone in his apartment with only the blue light of his laptop's monitor illuminating the stacks of paperback books on his desk would admit the truth in what you read. It may soothe you to know that he'll pick up the story again, an hour from now. This time, he'll finish it, wondering if he'll see himself again, and perhaps a little envious that the story's for you, not him. This story's for you. You pause a moment, confused, because you're not used to a story interfering quite so directly. After all, this is genre fiction, popular fiction, not some most postmodern metafictional mainstream story. This is that crazy sci-fi stuff. You read this type of anthology for escape and for that lovely sense of wonder, not for pretension and experimentation. Over the years, you've slipped 1,000 times between covers with sleek spaceships and square-jawed heroes, scantily clad women, and grotesque aliens slithering across a two-mooned landscape. You've lost yourself in 1,000 worlds and glimpsed myriad universes painted in words garish or subtle, poetic or plain. You've allowed yourself to be the protagonist, any age, gender, or race, and you've bled and you've loved, triumphed and died everywhere from the medieval past to distant galaxies. You have the gift of imagination yourself, and that's why the story's for you. You can become. You've read the books and watched the movies since you were a kid, and sometimes you've wondered how it would be if lights descended from the sky in front of you one night, whirling down the lonely country road as you step from your car, drawn by mingled fear and curiosity. And then the side of the ship melts, and there in a rectangle of blinding light it appears. The other. You've wanted that to happen. It's not going to, though. At least not that way. You know that. You've realized long ago that any life that's out there is going to be so profoundly different from you that it may not even be recognizable. Even if it were, the other's interests and values aren't going to be yours. That's you, right? The one reading this? You're still not convinced, though. Fine. So convince me, you think, even though at the same time the deeper skeptical part of you insists that's not possible. And it's not totally. This story could tell you that you lost someone close to you not all that long ago, and that you've kept a memento of them because it brings back the memories. That's the case, of course, and your eyes narrow again because the words have struck too close to home. You also know it's exactly the kind of vague statement a supposed psychic would use in a cold reading. But you shiver, as if cold fingers just brushed your spine. You wonder, as you have before, just who's having this one-side conversation with you, and why. So tell me, you think, nearly saying the words aloud. Fine, here's why. Elephants. You almost laugh at that, but it's true. Remember that old elementary school mind trick where someone says, think of anything you want, but just don't think of elephants. And as soon as they say that, you instantly can't think of anything but elephants. An entire herd of them go rampaging through your forebrain, trumpeting and ear flapping, raising the dust from your cerebellum. Here, let's try it again. Think of anything but parasites. Ah, your eyebrows lifted at that. And my, the images in your head. Parasites. You shift uncomfortably in your seat. What if? That's the genesis of so much of the genre that you read, isn't it? What if, the author muses, and then erects a plot from there. Here's one for you. What if a parasite wanted to enter the human mind, a sentient parasite, a very intelligent parasite? What would be an interesting reproductive strategy? Reproduction, after all, is just engaging in patterns. DNA is an arrangement of simple genetic codes, and yet it encompasses all the wild variety and complexity of life. And words are just an arrangement of simple letters. But my, how powerful they are in your head, in all their various wonderful combinations. That's why you're a reader, after all. Words are a conduit into your mind. Words are bound so deeply in your thought processes that you can't even imagine the world without them. If someone, or something, wanted to control you, they'd have to use words, wouldn't they? Why, with just the right compelling pattern of words, your mind would open like a raw wound, and who knows what could slither in. So don't think of elephants, no matter what. Too late. You've heard of all those stories that change your life, that stay with you forever. It just happened. For you. Just for you. You deny it, but even though you take the page and your fingers ready to turn to the next story, you wonder. You think to yourself that once the page turns, you'll forget all this, that a week, a month, a year from now, you won't even recall ever having read this. Oh, you'll remember. At this point, you don't have a choice. It's already started inside. You squint and you deny, but you'll remember because everything from here on has changed for you. You have the words inside you now. and you won't like where they take you, where I take you. But you'll remember, won't you?